I'll be answering for you the question of how do you find a faithful man? And I know a lot of my subscribers are thinking, Marquette, do not do it. But a young lady slid in my DMs and she said, hey, King, I got a question for you. I've had a situation where, as a strong woman, I've had many men basically tell me that they're ready to be in a relationship, but when I hold them accountable, it turns out that they're not ready to be in a relationship. Marquette, give me some game. So I'm here for you ladies. This is a rare event in which I give you some advice because generally I'm talking to the fellas. This will be a hard pill to swallow. It'll be a red pill. I know some of you don't like to swallow, but please try to accept the truth that I'm going to give you. So she said the following question, and I asked her to define her terms. She said, as a strong woman, I have trouble when these men say they're ready for a relationship and then they back out. I said, well, first, what's a strong woman? Reason I asked that is because, generally speaking, the word strong woman, I don't know if I love this terminology. Why is it that that terminology would not appeal to a man? Because number one, the man wants to be the strong party in the relationship. Generally speaking, when you think of the term strong, you think of physical strength. And men don't want women for physical strength, right? Now, granted, the word strong can be all-encompassing. So I said, love, what do you mean by strong? She said, by strong, I mean that I am a great balance between self-sufficiency and submission. It's like, ooh, I like that. That sounds good to me. And I'm not going to name her name because I don't know if she wants to be named, but beautiful black woman with natural hair, nice lips, big white teeth, defining terms. I say, okay, now I understand what a strong woman is, love. So you're saying once these guys agree that they're going to be in a relationship with you, they back out. Well, what do you mean by back out? She says, well, Marquette, what I mean is that the guys agree to certain parameters in the relationship, parameters around communication, parameters around fidelity or being faithful. And then when I bring up their behaviors that have transgressed our agreement, they pretend as though I'm attacking them or as though I'm crazy. And, basically they go into avoidance mode. They never keep it real and acknowledge their errors. I said, well, that sounds like a lot of people, a lot of men and a lot of women. So let me address your question. I think the underlying question is about fidelity, about men being faithful, which is increasingly hard to find. I mean, hell, women aren't being faithful in 2020. Chris Brown told you these hoes ain't loyal, neither are these guys. But let's talk about it. So the first piece is, as a strong woman, if strong is what you said it is, love, which is to be a woman who is self-sufficient and submissive, a good balance of the two, that's a wonderful thing. I would tell you in terms of diction, I might not use the term strong. It kind of turns men off straight away. Strong does not really appeal to the male psyche. I'm just keeping it real with you, love. So every man wants a woman that is like you've described yourself to be, assuming that you actually are this, because sometimes we think of ourselves to be certain things that we're really not, both men and women. So if you're really like that, you're going to appeal to every man out there, every heterosexual man out there. Now, you said that you have a problem with him, one, agreeing to something and then going against his word. So that's a matter of integrity. A real man is very much so into integrity. They're into stating their word clearly and standing by it. The hardest thing we must do as human beings is to be continuously honest, meaning in every moment being honest, which is very difficult. We tell white lies thoughtlessly. Ladies, I really do want to caution you about knowing your position within a man's life and also valuing that position if it is indeed a good position. If you're his main woman or you're his only woman, whatever the case is, you should be aware of your position. Because there's nothing worse than thinking you're the main woman when you're really the side woman, right? If you're the side woman and you're not getting the behavior you want out of that man, I can assure you, you never will. Why is that? Because he's already limited the influence that you'll have in his life. He's already psychologically decided the role that you will play. You're the French fries, you're not the hamburger, right? Everyone orders a hamburger, you get the French fries on the side. They're not necessary. If it turns out that you pull up to In-N-Out and they say, hey, we're out of fries, you'll say, no problem, give me a double-double. If you roll up to In-N-Out, they say, we don't have any double-doubles. You're like, what in the, then you start spazzing. So ladies, if you're not the main woman, then yes, you will not get the outcomes that you want out of a man. Also remember this, The more that you contribute to the man, the more he will give back to you. This is a rule for life. You get out what you put in. So a challenge that women are having in 2020 is that due to the influence of gender feminism and their idea that they should emulate the male and compete with the male rather than complement the male and contribute to the male, they're not offering enough value to men to where men want to commit or men want to contribute more to that woman. So the man is going to undervalue you if you're not delivering him enough of the things he wants. Life is an exchange. It's a quid pro quo. So you have to talk to him and make sure that he's getting what he wants out of the relationship, and that will enable you to get what you want out of the relationship. If you want to find a man who is going to be a man of his word, there are a couple places that you can find these folks huddled together, if you will. Higher performing men are more likely to be men of their word. What I mean is the higher you go in income, the higher you go in achievement, men are more likely to be people of their word. Why? Because it takes discipline to achieve. Discipline is the ability to regularly do things that are difficult. Discipline is the ability to regularly do things you don't want to do. Discipline is consistency, and those traits are very much so the cousins of being a person of your word or being honest. So the higher you go in income, higher you go in achievement. You find endurance athletes, marathoners, people who are very accomplished in their professions. They're far more likely than, say, lower class men, men who have lower incomes, men who have yet to achieve. They're far more likely to be people of their word. So that's number one. But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily faithful. Faithful is a difficult thing to find if you're talking about monogamy. So I just want to be straight out with it. I have talked to a lot of women about men and fidelity. The higher that a man goes in income level, if people know he's well off, that's going to attract more women. My experience has been that women, even if they know you're involved with a woman, if you're a guy with status, that just attracts them even more. If you're an athlete, if you're a CEO, if you're a famous person, hell, if you just have clout and you got a lot of followers on the internet, these are things that will attract women. And the challenging thing, unless you're dealing with a man of very strong moral values, very strong integrity, he will be susceptible to temptation. That's what you're dealing with. The young lady mentioned having a man who's good with communications. He's agreed to communicate regularly or communicate in a certain way, and obviously he has failed in that particular regard. Communication is difficult. You'll find the best male communicators in those who manage people. They're executives. They're high up in management. In other words, they have high emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is rare. Undoubtedly, the science indicates that males struggle with communication versus females, meaning we're not as good at it. Our vocabulary does not come to us when we're emotional. When the human animal is angry, in fact, you tend to forget things. It's harder to talk. Men tend to stonewall. They don't want to talk when they're angry. So if you want a man who's a great communicator, you need to find a man who already has that skill or innate ability, because I can assure you a tiger does not change its stripes. So if you're looking for a man with good communication skills, I recommend you find someone who is a manager of people. Like me, I'm a CEO. I must be able to communicate with people. I must be able to manage people. It is a part of my daily life, and as a result, I get a lot of practice, have a significant emotional IQ, and when you can find men like that, it'll guarantee you that at some level, you know, they at least have some practice, they have the inclination to communicate, they know the impact of open communication, and they probably have some emotional intelligence, which is why they've been able to ascend professionally. So that's a clear piece of communication. Also, you want a man who's a great leader. A man who's a good leader is going to set up certain routines or certain rituals that allow you all to have open communication. For example, before I have a meal with anyone, especially a significant other, I always say, "What are you thankful for?" before we break bread. That gives an opportunity. If I find that she's having trouble articulating something she's thankful for, meaning her gratitude is not coming to mind, that means something is emotionally off, and we should probably have a conversation about that. It keeps open lines of communication. It's a ritual. It's something we do regularly, irrespective of how we feel emotionally in a given moment. So that's how you find a guy who's good with communications. Now here's a red pill for you ladies. And please, try to accept this if you will. And I only tell you this because I really love you and I want you to get what you want and I want you to make a man really happy. So I'm doing this for both you and the fellas. The truth is this. When I was in university, a mentor of mine, he said, Marquette, I don't want you to think about what you want out of a woman. I want you to make a long list of the things that you absolutely hate and cannot stand in a woman. Then, rather than look for the things that you want in a woman, I want you to avoid these things on this list like the plague. If you know the things you hate in a woman, you look for those things and avoid those things. So if you meet a woman and she doesn't have any of these terrible characteristics, that's the woman that you stick with. Which is to say, there are things that maybe a person can grow in. There are things that maybe you don't like about a person, but you can deal with. But there are other things that are non-negotiable. For some women, infidelity is non-negotiable. For other women, it's like the military policy of don't ask, don't tell. And they're comfortable with that. They have greater priorities like maintaining their family life with the man or living well economically, whatever the case is. Or they say, hey, you treat me well when you're here. You take good care of me. We live together. We have a great life. I'm not worried about what you do on a business trip. I say that to say you can't have everything in life, ladies. You should probably get realistic about the things that are most valuable to you in a man. Figure out what those things are. Also, importantly, figure out the things you cannot stand and avoid those things. By the time you're done with these lists, you're going to realize the following. No man is perfect, which you probably already know that. But when you go for the guy who's tall, well-built, muscular, handsome, wealthy, athletic, and comes from a good family, well, that guy's probably cheating on you. Why? Because he fits the description that 99.9% of the female population wants, and women are trying to take him from you left and right. You could find a guy who's humble, works a good job at Bank of America, looks all right, is in okay shape. He'll never cheat on you. One, because he doesn't have a tremendous amount of temptation because women are not throwing themselves at him. Two, he's a simple guy. He has modest needs. So his appetite is satisfied just by you. So I say that to say, really think about what you want. If you want the big deal guy, that comes with a level of baggage. So for example, I often talk to women and say, Bill Clinton cheated on his wife with a young lady who was not very attractive, and he did this in the White House where he knew he was being watched, where he knew his employees and colleagues were aware of his infidelity. And Bill Clinton is a Rhodes Scholar. That is an academic designation that means you have first-rate brains. Also, he had everything to lose, money, political office, status, and he still risked it to get some oral sex, which is to say human beings are animals. And I don't want to be too Freudian, but even if you look at the biological side of it, the hypothalamus in the male brain is, I believe, 3 times larger than that of the female, which means that primitive desires like sex, for example, are much more of a ruling factor in the human animal. I'm not saying that human beings cannot control themselves. I'm saying when human beings act like human beings based on their actual biological realities, there should be some level of understanding, which is to say you should live in reality. I know it's very difficult to accept this truth, but the more you accept truth, you'll live an easier, happier life. I hope this video has served you at some level. Ladies, do let me know what you think because I never make videos for the ladies. So if you don't let me know, like Marquette, you spitting that fire, you dig, I'm not doing it again. But if you did get some value, please click the subscribe button and absolutely click that bell because I do go live on YouTube and answer questions. And as I always say at the end of my videos, repeat after me because you should know this about yourself. I am truly remarkable and I will make sure that every moment I am showing the greatest part of who I am.